You mentioned when you were in the UK, you had influential people that helped you start off with veganism. There's various reasons we follow a plant-based diet. You mentioned them all: the health, animal welfare, and the environment. But how do religious beliefs, and you mentioned a bit about that, how do religious beliefs, as well as ethnic and family traditions, influence views on animal welfare, and also what the food is that families put on their table? Because they could know all about those other three.
Yeah.
But then you got this other, part that kind of sometimes conflicts and confounds their decision.
Yeah, you bring up such an important practical point, and it's that our culture and our background really determine the food that we eat, because there is a certain level of what we're used to, what our parents did, what our grandparents did, the part of the world we grew up in. So that really influences that. And in addition, there's culture, but then there's religion, where certain religions eating meat is allowed. And there's certain religions where it's not supposed to be eaten. So these religious beliefs also then have a huge role. And a lot of times I talk about with families, often different cultures, different backgrounds. There's always an element in every culture and spiritual background or religious background to talk about the concept of fasting, which I think is something that's universal across traditions, and the idea of using periods of time where we probably lessen or restrain on certain types of food. And I think that's a great place to start, because again, we always want to try to provide principles that can cross the barriers of religion. So I think talking about the ideas of minimizing or fasting are really important as a way for just get people to consider reducing consumption, right? So I think that's one place to start. And then, to be honest, there's a lot of families who have chronic diseases, and when I introduce it to them, they'll very openly tell me, like, Doc, this is all our family's ever known.
Yeah.
I'm going to need your help. Like, we have no idea where to start, and that's totally understandable. And I can empathize and relate to that, because I was also, I always tell all my families, I said, I was in your shoes too, where I had to make that, I also was trying to work on transitioning. And so I always speak about my own, personal journey to make, myself a little bit more relatable, that it wasn't always like this.
Yeah, so you're not just lecturing somebody, you're actually inspiring them by what you had to go through.
Yeah.
You mentioned before the Game Changers. I mentioned to you before this new documentary called Christspiracy, which is going to be out. It's Christspiracy.com, and actually it addresses this question mark of animal welfare, animal cruelty, and how religion and spirituality plays into it. It's not just about Christians. It's also they go to India and look at how they treat the animals there. I think in India they're more vegetarian. They look at the cow as being sacred, correct?
Yes.
So I'm not sure which religion, Indian religion, but there's one religion where they have a yearly spiritual killing of animals, not to eat them. I'm not sure which one it is, but yet here you have the cow being sacred, but then there's I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of cows killed in one day for spiritual reasons. So a movie like Christspiracy, when it comes out, I'm sure you'll be interested to watch it. I think it's something that helps people kind of maybe learn some things that we're misinformed about. So it's a really great documentary. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, and I think one thing to remember that our culture and our faith specifically is an important vehicle for our choices. So I'll give you a anecdotal example. The government of Canada, I learned this from a pastor and a temple priest. And they told me that during COVID, they wanted to increase the uptake of people taking the COVID vaccine. So the government actually approached spiritual leaders to be able to, the leads in the different traditions, to talk to their congregation.
Are you talking about here in Canada now?
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Talk to the congregations about getting vaccinated for COVID-19. This was only told to me by them. I didn't know this. And so what what the reason I'm mentioning this is that, again, it shows that even the government recognizes
How
that
influential they
our
are.
culture, our spiritual beliefs, our faith have a strong impact, and so that's also a vehicle for education as well in
I agree.
large masses.
Yeah.
So I thought I was really surprised, but it really showed me the importance that, again, as you mentioned with this question, that our culture, our religion, our faith can play in this, in this important topic.
Well, like in Christianity, for example, in the Old Testament, there's rules set out in Deuteronomy where they say, what animals you can eat and what you can't. But yet this movie actually questioned, is it ethical to kill an animal? And how would Jesus kill the animal? So it's a very interesting documentary. I've already seen it, and I think it's going to have worldwide impact, not only for Christians, but for Buddhists, for all type of backgrounds.